This is Bellevue Now, a public affairs show about issues that impact our community. I'm your host, LENKA Wright. Bellevue is known for its high quality of life. Combined with a healthy economy and good schools, we've seen tremendous growth here, with 140,700 people now residing in our city. Joining me now is Transportation Director Dave Berg. We also have Development Services Director Mike Brennan with us, so thank you both for joining us for Bellevue Now.
Thank you for having us.
You're welcome.
Well, I know you're both very familiar with the impacts that growth's having on our city as well as our transportation system, both regionally and locally. So Dave, how does the regional infrastructure such as I-90 and 405 affect the traffic patterns locally?
So yeah, Bellevue is at this crossroads between three major freeways, I-90, Interstate 405, and 520, and a number of interchanges and ramps on and off those freeways also. So needless to say, what happens on those freeways has a tremendous effect on our city streets and arterials. That's why we spent so much time working with the State Department of Transportation. They've actually invested about $700 million just within Bellevue over the past 5-7 years or so. They've also got another $1 billion they're investing in the segment between Bellevue and Renton to free up 405 in that area. So we work a lot with our regional partners to make sure the regional system is working so our local system can also work.
And Mike, something else that comes up in terms of when proposals come in for development of, let's say, a multifamily housing project, what does the city consider to ensure it fits in well with the proposed location?
So I think it's helpful to understand the city's broader growth strategy when responding to that question. The city has growth centers. I think they're obvious to most people. The downtown, obviously, Eastgate, Wilburton, the Bell Red area where the future of light rail is headed. And in those areas, the city has really redefined the growth that will occur into the future and how the city will accommodate all of the different people and jobs that will move here. In those growth centers is where multifamily projects would most likely happen. And when that does happen, it goes through the city's permit process. And in that process, we have staff in development services that look at the context around the project. What's happening next door? Does the project fit well with what's happening around it? Access to pedestrians, access to vehicles and transportation. So it does go through a fairly rigorous review process. And an important part of that process is the involvement of the community. The community around the project is given notice to really engage in review, providing their comments, and it has a significant amount of influence in the end result of a project, that community involvement piece. So in the end, I think the city has done a pretty remarkable job as we continue to grow in really fitting appropriate growth in the right spots with really quality projects.
Yeah, and something that we're seeing with this growth, more cars on the road, adding to longer commute times. So Dave, the city is taking action to improve the flow of traffic, and one of those being the adaptive signal system. So explain how that works.
Yeah, I love talking about this project. We have fully implemented an adaptive traffic signal system in Bellevue, about 200 signals. Took us, a couple of years to do this, but we were the first city in Washington State to have a 100% adaptive signal system. So what the system does is there's sensors in the roadway, and as cars approach the intersection, those sensors know that there's cars there, send all this information back to our central computer, and the signals actually can adapt almost in real time depending on how many cars are approaching on the different legs of an intersection. So we've seen some tremendous benefits from this system, depending on the corridors, anywhere from a 13% to a 43% reduction in travel time. That's very significant. So the system itself, it's creating less delay for cars. It's more efficient for pedestrians, and really has given, it was a $5.5 million project, a tremendous bang for the buck when you think about the savings that our drivers in Bellevue are getting advantage of.
And David, how else is the city looking to technology to improve our transportation system and how we get around the city?
Well, technology today, as we all know, is just going by leaps and bounds. In the transportation field, there's no exception. I think everyone's probably heard about driverless cars or autonomous vehicles. We are looking at that as a way that we will have a safer, a cleaner, a more efficient, less congested transportation system in the future. Now, it's not a matter of if this kind of technology technology is coming. It's just a matter of when. So we have recently updated our plans to incorporate kind of this new technology focus. We've also recently hired a transportation technology manager position, and their role is really to be reaching out to the private sector, the nonprofits, other public agencies, and looking at ways how we can use technologies and some of these new types of technology to solve some of our real world congestion problems of today.
And Mike, switching gears, there's a growing emphasis on what's called transit-oriented development, and especially with Eastlink Light Rail coming to Bellevue soon. What's the desired result of this TOD development?
So transit-oriented development is really the development form of the future, and what it really is higher density development that happens around our transit hubs. So for Eastlink, as you mentioned, around the stations that will be located in the city, we are planning for and encouraging through our land use plans that transit-oriented development. It includes mix of uses, retail, residential, commercial uses like offices, and a lot of things that people want to do in their recreational time within these transit hubs. So the idea behind transit-oriented development is to really take away the need for a car, put high reliance on the transit system that supports those areas, helping us on several fronts. One is it reduces our carbon emissions and helps our environment, and really increases the ridership on our investments in the transit system. So really the future for Bellevue, and particularly out in the Bel-Red area along the corridor of the light rail system, is transit-oriented development.
Yeah, and Dave, many residents have told us their concerns about cut-through traffic in their otherwise quiet neighborhoods. Aside from enforcement, are there other ways to discourage drivers from doing this?
So yeah, I talked about the advantages technology is bringing. Well, the disadvantage here is now we know exactly how long it's going to take in the shortest amount of time from point A to point B. And a lot of times that is leading folks, especially commuters, through neighborhoods and residential areas. So it is something we hear a lot about, and we're finding some of our more traditional tools such as speed humps and traffic circles are not creating the kind of inconvenience to actually dissuade drivers from using neighborhood streets. So we're engaging neighborhoods, letting them solve problems, and they're thinking about things like turn restrictions and actually narrowing roadways and creating some lane restrictions, which obviously have a safety benefit but also an inconvenience factor. So the neighborhoods are having to sort through this, and thanks to the recently approved neighborhood safety connectivity and congestion relief levy, we've now got a funding resource to be able to address some of the backlog of projects that are out there. I will say, though, safety is our number one priority in the department. The council has recently adopted a Vision Zero initiative, which is the goal is to reduce or eliminate serious injury and fatality accidents in Bellevue by 2030. We take that very seriously and is our number one priority.
And from both of your perspectives, what are actions people can take in order to best adapt to the good and the bad that comes with being a growing, vibrant city? Mike, I'll start with you first.
Thank you. So first of all, a growing city creates some inconvenience, whether it's a sidewalk that's blocked on your normal path, walking path to work, or a lane is blocked due to a construction project. There's noise. So there are these inconveniences and so I think a little patience is obviously an ingredient we all have to kind of put into our daily lives. But there are a lot of upsides. So there's lots of amenities to take advantage of that have now emerged in the city. We've got a very lively downtown now into the evening hours, lots of new restaurants and activities, entertainment activities that people can enjoy. We have beautiful parks, continuing to develop parks in our city that are really attractive and well used. And I think the other benefit to growth is really it comes with a new excitement and a new energy that has come to the city, and it's something that is continuing to really feed on itself and creating, I think, an exciting future for the city.
And Dave, same question for you.
Well, so LENKA, I've heard it said that traffic congestion is just a leading economic indicator. And clearly, as more people move into the region, more residents, more jobs in Bellevue, more growth means more people driving on our streets. So we have spent a lot of time over the past many years focusing on creating a balanced transportation system so people have choices in how they travel. So we don't have to just rely on the personal vehicle, creating a fast, frequent, reliable transit system, ultimately light rail transit, a bicycle network, safe pedestrian walkways. So looking at creating choices for people. I think the one thing or two things that folks can do is one, think about how they're going to travel. There's, again, many choices out there, and hopefully in the future even more choices. Also think about when you're going to travel, and there's a lot of information available. Our city website in the transportation page, you can see real-time traffic conditions on city streets. We have 75 traffic cameras. You can see what it's like before you leave your home or before you leave work for your trip. So you have maybe more predictability in that travel time. And there's a lot of other information out there on our website that you can go to and get real-time alerts for conditions on the roadway.
Yeah, and I've used them many a time. So,
Great.
Well, thank you, Mike and Dave, for joining me.
Thank you,
you.
LENKA.
Coming up, we've seen the devastation caused by Hurricane Maria in Puerto Rico. How would you keep your family safe in such a situation? We're back next with answers and tips from the folks at Bellevue's Office of Emergency Management.
Your actions make a big difference for water quality in the Puget Sound. Hey Bellevue, don't drip and drive. Car leaks are one of the leading polluters of the Puget Sound. They can be harmful to local waterways, wildlife, and even your family and pets. Car leaks are not only bad for the environment, but they're bad for your vehicle too. If you see a leak, make sure to visit an automotive shop and get it fixed. It's better for you, your car, and the Puget Sound. For more information, go to fixcarleaks.org today.
For nearly a month now, residents of Puerto Rico are struggling without electricity, adequate drinking water, enough food, and medical supplies since Hurricane Maria slammed into the island on September 20th. Here in Bellevue, we're not prone to hurricanes, but there are other natural and man-made hazards that could create a similar scenario. Well, joining me now is Curry Mayer, who's the city's emergency manager, and we also have Sophia Lopez, who's the emergency management coordinator, who also specializes in public education. Well, thank you both for joining me.
Thank you for having us.
Well, it certainly is scary to think about the possibilities from long-lasting power outages to not having running water. Curry, how does the city plan for emergencies that have the potential to overwhelm the city?
To ensure that Bellevue is truly resilient, we focus our training and exercises on three particular groups. So we work with city departments, public safety, transportation, utilities. Then we also work with the public and all of our regional partners. And the regional partners include not only other governments, but also private sector partners. So we do training with them. We look at disaster scenarios and walk through what would we actually do and how would we be most prepared so that we're really ready when whatever happens in Bellevue, all of those groups are prepared.
What type of hazards do we have here in Bellevue?
Well, the most obvious one that you hear a lot about are earthquakes. So that is the most impactful hazard that we have here, but the least likely. So it's important for people to remember that there are hazards that happen all the time, and there are things that they can do to be prepared for those hazards that are more common. So winter storms that would cause a power outage or electrical lines down, fires, of course, not only in buildings downtown, but in residents or all of our park areas are also prone to fires. We do have landslides. Anytime you have an abundance of rain, which we do in the Pacific Northwest, there's always the potential for flooding, landslides, and then of course there are human-caused events. So anytime there's a public event where there are large groups of people, you have the potential for there to be some human-caused event that would turn that event into an emergency.
Well, Sophia, turning to you, one area that the city's Office of Emergency Management supports is community resiliency. So what can residents do to prepare, especially with the storm season upon us?
So we always try to educate our residents to think about food, water, and warmth. With any event that might take place, whether it's a windstorm or a winter storm, we want our residents to be able to think long-term, for example, power outages. So what I have here is we have this great public education. It's this campaign that we're pushing called 2 Weeks Ready. It's being pushed out statewide. So this is something that you can find in our office or on our website, and it gives you a list of items that people can consider to put inside their emergency kits, whether they're sheltering in place or leaving and evacuating. So you're thinking of water, you're thinking of something to keep warm, sturdy shoes, and then comfort items as well. I actually have, in my own personal kit, I have a deck of cards at all times because that's something that I think would keep me busy after something traumatic has happened.
In fact, you have an emergency kit with you. Why don't you bring it up on the table and tell us what's in it?
Okay. So something that you would want to have in a nice go bag is essentially you want some tools to keep with you. So this is a multi-purpose tool. This comes in handy for your vehicle as well as for your home. And the 4-in-1, so it has 4 options that you can use it for, but it's primarily used to turn off your natural gas, which isn't something you want to do right away. It's very difficult to get it turned back on, but after a major shaking, if you hear a hissing or smell rotten eggs, those would be some signs that you might want to shut off your natural gas. So the multi-purpose tool is essential. In addition to some other tools I have, in addition to that, we have rope and we also have some tools for cutting. So let's say you have to set up a shelter. Should the power go out in the dead of winter, or should there be an earthquake and it's cold outside, and let's say you had some broken windows and you didn't have a means to repair them, I have in here a thermal sleeping bag. So the thermal material is really lightweight and it feels like foil paper, but it does a great job of keeping your body heat contained. So you're thinking tools, you're thinking sheltering and warmth. You're also thinking cleanliness. So I have washcloths in here, little wet wipes. These come in handy for just daily cleansing, but also should you have a wound that you need to clean and you might not have a first aid kit on hand, you can at least have some moist towelettes nearby. And then communication. You want to be able to communicate with the outside world. If you find yourself in a power outage and an earthquake has just occurred, it's realistic to know that you might be on your own for a little bit as responders try to get to as many people as they can as fast as they can. So this is a solar-powered radio, and it's also a flashlight and a hand crank. So this is a nifty device. We found this online. We just Googled it. And so, but those are really easy to find and not too expensive. And in addition to that, this is a portable battery charger for my cell phone. So this is something that, you can sit in your car and keep your phone charged, but if you might not want to waste the gas that you have, if you keep something like this charged already on hand and keep it on your person, then you can communicate with your out-of-area contact or with your family that you might be separated from. Even just being able to send a text message, which gets through much with more ease than a phone call, you can let your family know that you're okay. And then lastly, as I mentioned, having a comfort item, so I have UNO cards. And this is something that I really stress for families. If you have kids and your family has just experienced something traumatic, you might want to think of keeping something inside a kit that could be pleasant or something to help pass the time. So whether it's playing a game or having your favorite book, or for little ones, coloring crayons and coloring book, those are some things that everyone's kit will be specific to their needs.
Yeah, and certainly during a disaster situation, a significant emergency, we will certainly be depending on volunteers, and that's something that the Office of Emergency Management supports, one being the Community Emergency Response Team, or CERT. Why should someone consider getting involved in a program like CERT?
Well, as I mentioned a moment ago, a lot of folks have this misconception that responders are going to come right away. There are a lot more people out there than there are responders. And so we try to stress to people that you are your first care provider. You are that for your neighbor as they are for you. And so the more people that have these critical life-saving skills, the more resilient the city would be. And so with the CERT program, we're relatively new. We're about to graduate our 5th class. And the more people who go through this training, we're tracking them and we're making sure that they connect with each other who are close to their neighborhood. So we are able to start to form these groups throughout the city, and we'll know, for example, the Crossroads CERT team, as they grow, those are people that we can rely on to kind of be that first care provider for their areas. And so ideally, we hope to get as many people trained as we can to feel more confident in Bellevue's ability to withstand something traumatic.
And Curry, anything else that you'd like to add about how folks can prepare for winter storms, things of that nature?
Okay, I think it's good to talk with your family about how you would get out of your house if there's some kind of disaster. And everyone can learn some easy skills that could make the difference between being rescued or having to wait for someone to come rescue you. So everyone can learn to use a fire extinguisher, to do some basic first aid, and to make sure you have water and food. Then you're going to be in much better shape.
Well, thank you both for joining me, and a very important message, get your emergency kit, get it together, so
Thank you,
prepare.
LENKA.
Great, thank you both. And for the latest news about our city, be sure to join us online at BellevueNOW.gov. Until next time, I'm LENKA Wright. Have a great day.